Hi and welcome to Yoga for Normal People. I'm Abby and today we're going to do a short little practice to help loosen up tight hip flexors. So we sit a lot in our daily lives and you may find that after sitting for a long period of time, whether you're driving or sitting at a desk, that the front of your hips feel really sore, especially when you go to lift your leg forward in front of you. And it can cause a lot of discomfort, it can cause a lot of problems in the low back and the pelvis. So we're going to do a few quick little things to help kind of relieve some of the pressure there and make things feel better. So the first thing I'd like you to do is go ahead and come to a seat anywhere you are. You don't necessarily need a yoga mat or really anything, you can just do this on the floor. And what you're going to do is first take your right shin and make a 90-degree angle with it. So you'll need to tuck that right knee in slightly and then make that right shin parallel to the front of the mat. Your left knee, you're going to take out to the side so that it's perpendicular to your hip. And then that left shin, go ahead and bring that also to a 90-degree angle. This is called a 90-90 sit. Just sitting in this position, you can feel a lot of sensation, especially in that left hip. You'll notice that probably your left pelvis comes up off the ground. That's okay. What I'd like you to do is just simply take your fingertips to the either side of your right leg and simply turn your chest just a little bit more towards that knee. And take a deep inhale here. And then on your exhale, just walk your fingertips forward in front of that right shin and come down to whatever shape feels good. So if it's lifted here, if it feels good to lower down to the ground onto elbows, you can even let your head drop. So as you find that good spot for you, you may find that the tension lessens on the inner groin, on that front hip flexor here on the left side, as you move your torso towards the floor. So it just depends on how you're feeling. Go ahead and switch sides. And I'm actually just going to do this off so that you can see it now from the side. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking my left leg and making a 90-degree angle with it, making sure that knee is in line with that left hip. And then I'm taking my right knee and adjusting it so that it's perpendicular to my right hip and bringing that shin so that it is at a 90-degree angle to my right thigh. And then here, once again, just lifting the heart, taking the fingertips down to the mat. You'll feel that stretch, especially outside edge of your hip, inner groin here, just noticing what that feels like. Take a couple deep breaths here. And then when it feels good, you can choose to just kind of play with the position of the torso, whether you decide to come down to hands at first, lifting the heart, keeping that spine nice and long, or if you'd like to go down to elbows, or even let your head drop. And just stay here for 5 to 10 breaths. And once you're done with those 5 to 10 breaths, go ahead and just come back to sit. And what I'd like you to do is take the soles of your feet together, sit up tall, and draw your heels in towards your midline and let your knees drop out towards the side. Just a nice little groin opener here just for a moment. And I like to hang on to my ankles so that I can actually give myself a little bit of a lift where I'm actually pulling up with my torso against my legs and I'm pressing down with my knees. It's more of an active stretch. And then once you've done that, go ahead and come around onto all fours. And from all fours, what I'd like you to do is take that right foot back towards the back of the mat. Make sure that your hands are under your shoulders and your knees are roughly under your hips. And then lift through the back line. So now what we're doing is we're activating the back of the leg, the back of the hip, extending it out and back. So this should feel pretty good. You're just getting some length along the right side. And then exhale, go ahead and come back down. Inhale to take that left foot back, toes pointing down. And on your exhale, go ahead and lift from the back of your left thigh. And I'm flexing through the sole of my foot like I'm standing on the wall behind me. That just helps activate the muscles in the back of my leg. Take an inhale here and then exhale and drop that knee back next to the right one. And here, just start to shift hips around a little bit, just loosening up. One of my favorite things to do, especially after sitting for a really long time is actually to walk my hands out forward by about a good foot and then shift my shoulders forward, let my hips come down towards the mat and lift my heart. So my hips are dropping, I'm releasing my hips down. I'm not holding any tension. I'm also separating my feet here. This helps just give a little space for the low back. And then exhale and slowly walk your hips back. You can come into a child's pose. And then walk forward and come back into that sort of lazy upward facing dog. So we're not lifting the thighs off the ground, we're not pushing the tops of the feet into the mat, we're just letting the front of the body stretch out a little bit. And then counterbalancing that with a nice little child's pose. So we'll do that one more time, and then we'll move on. And if at any time you feel like, okay, I get what you're doing, you can hang out longer if you feel like you need it, or if you feel like this isn't working for you, feel free to fast forward and just find the next move that might work for you. Go ahead and come back to all fours, and then inhale to take that right foot back, and on your exhale, pick that right foot up, and then bend your right knee, take your right foot in between your hands towards the front of your mat. This is a really nice deep hip flexor stretch. So what you're gonna do is take your hands up to the top of your right thigh, and you're gonna actively press down into the front of your left shin. Lift your heart, and notice how you'll feel a stretch into the front of that left hip flexor. You may feel it down deep into the psoas. And then go ahead and release. So frame that front foot, step back into your all fours position. Take an inhale, and on your exhale, take that left foot back, lift it up, stand on that back wall. And then on your next exhale, draw knee to nose, step that left foot in between your hands, take your hands to your thigh, press down to lift your chest. And again, this time you'll feel that stretch into the front of your right hip flexor. We're gonna add on to this just a little more. Make it a little deeper as we go. Go ahead and come back down, all fours or tabletop position. And then do that right leg one more time, so lifting it off the mat, and then drawing it in between your hands. Taking your hands to your right thigh, pressing down to lift up. And then what I'd like you to do is here, as you're pressing down actively into your foot and into the front of your shin, slowly walk those right toes forward and press down again. So you're actively pressing into the ground. You'll still feel that stretch in the left hip flexor, but here, instead of just having a passive stretch where you're just letting the body hang in the ligaments and stuff, which tends to aggravate things like this, you're actively pressing down into the front foot and to the front of the shin so that you actually get an activation in the front of the left hip, which also helps with the strengthening but also with the stretching and releasing. There's a technique in physical therapy called active release therapy, and it kind of works on the same principles. Take an inhale and then exhale. Frame that front foot, step back, all fours. Inhale to take your left foot back. Exhale to pick it up. And then inhale and exhale, draw that left foot in between your hands, come on up to that low lunge position with your ankle stacked underneath that front knee. And we'll just start here. This is our first position. Pressing down actively into the shin. If I stop pressing down into that shin, I can just flop, I can just be lazy. And that's not gonna help with the experience that you're having. So actively press. And then, just for a moment, start to scooch those left toes forward. And keep pressing. So press into the front heel and press into the back shin. You'll feel that sort of simultaneous strengthening and stretching in that right hip flexor. And then go ahead and release. And we're going to come back to all fours just for a moment. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, come into a downward facing dog. Now we're doing a downward dog here because we want to get some flexion in the hips, and this just helps kind of give us that sense of forward folding or bending like we're sitting. And you can just pedal out your heels. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, look between your hands, and just take a walk up to the top of your mat. And at the top of your mat, take an inhale to halfway lift, and then exhale to fold. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up overhead, and exhale, hands come down to heart center. Take a deep breath. And then here, what I'd like you to do is find a spot on the floor or on the wall, someplace where you can actually stabilize your gaze. So make sure that it's not moving, make sure that it's not jumping around, no screens, like if you're working on this on a TV screen, make sure you're not looking at the TV screen. So once you find a nice stable spot, take both feet underneath your pelvis, and just for a moment pick up your toes. Feel the four corners of your feet, so the 2 points under your toes, the 2 points under your heels, and then release them. And then here, ground down into your left foot, and if you need to, I have a wall here, so if you need to have something to stabilize yourself, just make sure you have something close. You're gonna ground down into that left foot, and then slowly bend that right knee, reach back, see if you can catch that right ankle. And keeping an eye on that stabilized spot will actually make balancing a lot easier. Now, this is a common dancer's pose, but what we're actually going to do here is press the right foot into the right hand and pull the right hand back up towards the shoulder, and then square the shoulders. So again, this is an active stretch. We're activating the muscles and allowing them to lengthen at the same time. It's different from a passive stretch. Passive stretching is great, it's just different. And it doesn't generally get to the spots that we're trying to work on today. And then once you've done that, go ahead and release that. Take that right foot back down underneath your pelvis. Heels stuck under hips. Again, lift up your toes. Feel those four corners of your feet. Find your drishti, or your spot where you're keeping your eyes focused. Shift your weight slightly to the right and ground down into your right foot. And then bend your knee and see if you can find the ankle of your left foot. And here, once again, sure, I can just hang out, right? I can just kind of be loose and whatever about it, right? Rather than that, what I'd like you to do is press the top of the foot down into the hand, and at the same time, pull back up with that arm. So if you're looking at it from the front, you'll notice the difference between what a passive version of this pose looks like and an active version of this pose. So a passive version is going to look something like this, kind of hanging out, wobbling, chilling, whatever. There's no activation here. When I start to press my left foot into my hand, you'll notice that my pose becomes a lot stronger and more stable. But I'm still getting a nice deep stretch into the front of that hip. Take one more inhale, and on your exhale, go ahead and release. The next thing I'd like you to do, and you can choose to do this either standing up or sitting down, is ground down into both feet, or if you're laying down, just lie down on your back, and you're gonna pick up that right foot, cross it over your left, and see if you can get either the toes or the full foot, the full sole of the foot to the ground in front, crossed over your left foot. Then from here, take your arms up and overhead, and you're gonna reach over and grab your right wrist with your left hand, and then tip over towards the side. And then inhale back through center, and exhale, draw your hands down, uncross your legs, and switch sides. So you're gonna go ahead and pick up your left foot, cross it over your right, ground down into both feet, and then inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Take your left wrist in your right hand, and then you're gonna reach over towards the right side. And once again, if you need to find a drishti here, if you need to make sure that you're not toppling over, just get a good glimpse of the floor. Make sure you're not in a spot where you're toppling down. And then inhale, come back up, and go ahead and release. We're gonna come on down to the floor, and then go ahead and come down to our backs. Now once you're on your back, what I'd like you to do is ground down into your heels and gently pick up your pelvis, and then set it down one vertebrae at a time, like you're trying to lengthen the spine. This will also help lengthen the front body. And then here, pick up your right foot, cross it over your left knee, flex to the sole of the foot, and then slowly drop that right foot over towards the left side, keeping that right shoulder grounded. And if you like, you can take your arms out wide, you can take them into a T, and you can gaze out over your right or left shoulder. And then when you're ready, inhale back through center. Exhale to uncross your legs, and then pick up your left foot, cross it over your right thigh. And once again, you're gonna just drop that left foot down to the floor and keep that left shoulder grounded. So your left foot is coming across your body to the right side. And again, you can take your arms out long. You can take them into a T. You don't have to do anything with the arms. You can gaze out over your shoulder, whatever works for you. Just take a couple breaths here. And then inhale, come back through center. And we're going to revisit that same shape we did standing up, just so you can see what it's like. So what you're going to do is take both legs out long, flex to the soles of your feet, and then pick up your right leg and cross it over your left. Then pick up both heels, scooch them over towards the left side of the mat. Take your arms up and overhead, and grab your right wrist with your left hand and pull towards the left side of your mat. So you're kind of coming into this banana shape. It's just a different sensation at this angle. And then inhale back through center. Exhale, uncross your feet. And you can pick up that left leg, cross it over your right, and this time scooch those feet over towards the right corner. Inhale to reach your arms up and overhead. And then with your right hand, grab your left wrist and draw your hands both over towards the right side of your mat. So you're kind of coming into this banana shape, stretching through the side body. And then when you're ready, go ahead and inhale, come back through center. And walk your feet back in so the feet come to the floor, hands come to your belly, and if you like, pick up your pelvis once again and go ahead and let it just sit back on the mat. Draw your knees in towards your chest, so now we're compressing those tight hip flexors, those tight hip muscles, and just gently rock left to right on your pelvis. You'll notice this feels pretty good. It's releasing the low back. And then when you're ready, go ahead and grab on behind your thighs and rock and roll on up to a seat. And here, go ahead and take one leg out long. Take your right foot to the inside seam of your left leg in this case. And you're gonna sit up tall and then just slowly walk forward, stretching over that left leg. And then on your next inhale, go ahead and walk back up and switch sides. So right leg goes long, left leg comes to the inside line of that right. Left leg comes to the inside line of that right leg. Take both fingertips down on opposite sides of that right leg, and then just slowly fold forward. and then go ahead and come back up. We're going to do that one more time, this time more off to the side. So instead of clocking that left leg directly out in front of your hip, you're going to clock it out to about, well, as far as is comfortable off to the left side. You're going to take that right sole of your foot, bring it in towards your groin, sit up tall, and then instead of turning your torso towards your foot, I'd like you to stay facing forward so chest stays perpendicular to your leg. You're going to inhale to get long. And then exhale, and here just slide that left hand down your leg, reach your right fingertips towards that foot. Keep your chest lifted, so don't collapse, don't turn down. Keep it open. And then inhale, come back up, and switch sides. So left foot comes to the inside line of your right leg. I like to flex my foot. It just feels a little bit more like an activation, especially when I'm doing these kinds of stretches. So try it. If you like to point, try pointing. If you like to flex, flex will actually give you a bit of a deeper stretch. So sit up tall. Keep your chest square over your midline instead of turning your chest over your leg. And then on your exhale, just reach over towards the right side, reaching the arm up and overhead and really reaching the fingertips towards the side of the room. Again, making sure that you're not rounding down and curling down, but you're keeping open and lifted. And then inhale back up through center. And exhale, we're going to return to that butterfly pose, just as a final pose here. And once again, I really like to have that activation, that sort of, it's not a passive stretch. I'm not just letting my legs drop. What I'm doing is actively grabbing a hold of my ankles and drawing my chest up. So I'm actually pulling on my feet and then pressing my knees down. Take a couple of breaths here. And then when you're ready, you can reach down to the outside edges of your legs. Close your knees like you're closing the pages of a book. And then just come to sit and notice how you feel. I'm so glad you joined me for Yoga for Normal People today. I hope that this little series gave you a little bit of relief in the hips. And be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell so you know the next time I post one of these little short videos to help you feel better in your body. Feel free to go back and try any of these exercises throughout the day. They don't have to be done just once, or you don't have to do them all in one long string. You can pick and choose. It often helps, especially when you're dealing with hip pain, to be able to get up and move on a periodic and regular basis. So maybe you stand up and you do a little bit of that dancer's move at the wall. Maybe you stand up and do a little bit of the movement we did where you cross your feet, you come into that banana shape. Whatever works for you, but taking the time to make a little bit of movement in your day can really help relieve a lot of tension in your hip flexors. I'm so glad you joined me today for Yoga for Normal People. Namaste.